Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. Welcome to tonight's second bonus. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks, well, they're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second bonus, shall we? All right, so a couple days ago, I received an email from a subscriber, and she wanted to touch base with me before I talked to her husband, just to see how my personality was, to see if it was the way it is on camera. I guess people change their personality when they are on camera and off camera. I'm the same as I am all the time. But we chatted for a little bit, and I passed the test, and I was able to talk to her husband, who really was a super, super nice guy. And I want to thank her and him for sharing the experience with me and then allowing me to share the information that they gave me. The event that I'm going to share with you happened in 1991, and it happened in an area called Denali National Park and Preserve, in between Denali National Park and Preserve and the Denali State Park, formerly McKinley State Park, back in 1991. Now, the Alaskan Triangle, as many of you know, there's been a total amount of more than 20,000 people. Annually, yearly, something like 2,000 to 2,200 people go missing in Alaska in that area. And so it is a very strange area, and law enforcement has their hands full up there on a lot of just different sightings and different experiences and attacks and such. So what happened was he had been on duty. It was right at the beginning of summer, and some kids that had graduated from school that were from Anchorage decided to kind of have a graduation kind of getaway up in that area. And they had stayed in a little park or a little campground called Byers Lake. And that falls, once again, right in between the Denali National Park and Preserve and the Denali State Park. All that divides the two is a Parks Highway, or Route 3. And just a really beautiful but isolated area. And they receive a call probably the second to third day. He kept getting conflicting reports from 3 of the kids who didn't go missing. There was a total of 7 kids that went missing. 10 of them went up there. There were 5 couples that had gone camping. They had gone up there, and their plan was to just kind of hike around the Denali State Park and then kind of wander around and look at the grandness of Denali Mountain right there. There's like a large kind of tundra or field that extends from Route 3 going to this just huge mountainside. And it's really a treacherous area of land, on top of being full of mystery and some pretty crazy stuff that's happened since and before. And I shared a little bit with you guys of things that happened in the triangle. All of those experiences that I shared with you were Bigfoot experiences that happened in the Alaskan triangle. So these kids are up there. He obviously doesn't know all of the details of their camping trip. He knows that it was 2 or 3 days, and they had gotten a call. A frantic girl called the state police, stating that 7 of their friends had gone missing, that they were supposed to come back from a quick hike, and they never did. So state police went up there. They had interviewed the kids, looked around the area, and they ended up figuring out that the kids that went missing, they had a Astro van, and they had driven up into the state or national park from the state park, and they were going to hike just in that area. Once again, summer day. So it was like a 60-degree day, he said. And late June, 60-degree day. Nighttime temp, like 30s. So they find the vehicle off of Route 3, and they realize, hey, there's nothing out of the ordinary here. Maybe they got lost. Maybe, who knows? But it's our job to, gear up and go and find them. So with the protocol and everything, they had to contact the Alaskan State Park and all of that, national parks and park services and rec. State police were trained for search and rescue in these mountainous, cold areas. And that's exactly what they did. They got sent out. They had all brought a set of clothes with them for nighttime. They knew that they were going to be in this mountain until at least they found one or all of them, or at the most a 2-day stretch. So they'd walk in that day, camp that night, still hike, look around the next day, camp that night, and then hike out. That was just the protocol because we're talking about such a vast region of land. The first night, they get up into there, and there's about 6 state troopers and 2 park rangers who are officially, they are state police as well. They have to take state police courses and such, but they have to also take other courses to do their job. So they have the same amount of power as a state police, an Alaskan state trooper. They carry the same firearm they do, but they just have some more credentials in their arsenal of job description. Now, they are set up in a region of the Denali. So they had hiked in all day. They get as far as this area called Spink Lake, which is, in all actuality, at the base of this Denali mountain. It's right there, an all-day hike got you not even on the mountain. So they obviously have air support. There's some helicopters during the day that were going above them. And they had gone in the location where the van was parked. So they kind of followed a trail in. There was already kind of a trail that these kids had left. They get to the Spink Lake area, and they get to the north end of the lake. It's about 6 o'clock, and it's getting late, getting dark. People are getting tired. Temperatures are starting to drop. They end up deciding, hey, it's time to call it a night. There's not much we can do as of right now. So we'll resume in the daytime, and we'll try to get as far north as we can, and then camp the next night as far as we can get, and see if we can find any kind of clues of where these kids have gone to. Now, mind you, these state troopers and 2 park rangers are well aware of the disappearances. Like, this is not high strangeness. This is something that is known. And so they set up camp, and they're talking about, dividing up and how they're going to search the next day, and what would be the best best way to go about it, how and where we're going to end up meeting up. They're just talking. They've got some coffee going, and all of a sudden they hear this kind of a yell way off in the distance, and it sounds like a woman screaming, a woman yelling for help. And he distinctly remembers hearing the word help coming out of these woods, but it sounded far because of the echo. And however, they're all kind of looking. A few of them are yelling back, ma'am, come towards our voice. A few of them decide, one of the park rangers and a couple of the state troopers decide, hey, maybe we should go and walk out as far as we can get before it does get too late and we can't see anymore, which is against protocol. They have a certain kind of way. They don't want to, have missing hikers go missing, and then the search team go missing as well. So the gentleman who's in charge, which would be a state trooper, the guy that I spoke to was not in charge. He was not any kind of commander or anything. He was just a regular state trooper following orders. They're also right now bundled up in kind of they got long johns on, long pants, long shirt. And because the temps are 40, 45, practically lower, it gets lower as the night goes. And these kids are only wearing like sweatpants. One of them's got some shorts on. They're not dressed for an Alaskan night on this mountain. Also, what they can't figure out is how the hell these kids got so far away, because that sound of help sounded so far away, at least a mile or two. But they could hear the echo. That's what really made them think how far these kids were, or whoever was yelling. How did they get that far from, a day of being missing? And why wouldn't they, turn back and start walking? We should have met up with them if they had gotten lost and turned around, or, and at least right now, they know that we're looking for them because of the few guys that yelled, "Hey, man, follow our voice, come towards us." And a few of the guys are still yelling at that, As quick as the help yell came, it had ceased. There was just one just kind of loud "help" in a woman's voice. He doesn't remember if there was panic in her voice. He assumes there was, because it's getting dark, it's getting cold, and there were no other voices with hers. So is she alone? They are now kind of bickering amongst themselves, fuck protocol, this and that. State trooper who is in charge of this search and rescue for the night has to either, go along with the few of the guys or lay the law down. And he lays the law down. We're following protocol. We don't need to go searching for you dumbasses if you guys get lost or something happens to you. So they all decide to just, if they hear anything, they'll continue to yell out, follow our voice, maybe shoot a flare up into the air so the kids could be able to see it, or lone kid, because like I said, they didn't hear any other voices, and he emphasized on that. We only heard her voice. So if there was 7 of them, where are the other 6? Why haven't they come back towards us? And, once again, they are not dressed for a night in the mountains. It's cold. Protocol is 2 guys are going to stay awake for a couple of hours, then wake the other next two up, so on and so forth. The second team of guys that are staying awake, so 4 hours into a sleep, all of a sudden starts waking everybody up and are very hysterical. Get up, what the hell, get up. And they're pointing into the woods. They're, what the hell is that? And mind you, these guys all know what the northern lights look like and such. They are going to be in the sky. What they are seeing right now are these green glowing, this green glow, almost like a light mist would be the best way to describe it. He said, picture a mist, but that is glowing a green color, just all throughout the woods that you are staring at. That in a couple of hours, it's going to be daytime, you're going to be walking out that way. They're all looking at this greenness coming through the forest. It extends as far as they can see and goes both ways as far as they can see. To what they see, there is no stop to it. Behind them, it's not green, but in front of them, it is this just glowing green color. Everyone is like staring at this color, this strange phenomenon going on in front of them. And one of the guys says, "What the hell is that? What is that?" And they see a figure kind of swaying back and forth, but walking towards their area, their camp. They have a small fire going, and earlier in the day, earlier in this night, they were not being loud, but talking. They had yelled for this girl that they heard. So there may be like, few of them is thinking that's a Bigfoot. One of the guys had said, holy shit, that's a Bigfoot. Look how it's moving. About 30 seconds to 45 seconds later, this girl screams out, help me, help me. Is this real? And the commanding state trooper stands up and starts walking toward her with the park ranger that is in charge of his one guy. And they meet this girl, and it is the girl. It's one of the girls from this camp, from this hike that had gone missing. So now they're, looking at her, honey, are you okay? She's ice cold to the touch. She has what appears to be bruises and scrapes all over her face, on her body. Her legs are all cut up. She's in shorts. And, she's just dirty and ice cold, like just shivering and panicking. You've got to help me. You've got to help me. And ma'am, we're here to help you. Come sit by the fire. Let's warm you up. We're the state police. We're Alaskan state troopers. We have a couple of park rangers with us. We're trying to locate you and your friends. Your friends back at the camp called us to let us know that you're missing. Help us out. Tell us what your name is. They get her name. Yes, it's one of the missing kids. And, where are your friends? Where are these other 6 kids? And she says, I don't know. That yesterday we were all hiking and we got to this area that we were, not familiar with. We're not familiar of this area anyway, but, we'd gotten to this like clearing and we could see the mountain still was in front of us. And behind us was this, tundra or, plain. So we knew we were going the right way. And a few of my friends just took off running into the woods. I don't know if they were playing a game with us or what, but, me and one of the girls stayed behind because we were freaked out. All of a sudden, we don't hear anything from anyone anymore. And we decide to walk into the woods and see if we can find our friends. They're nowhere to be found. The girl's walking with her other companion, and so now you've got 5 missing kids, 2 girls walking, looking for their friends. And she sits down, the one girl sits down that is not with her. The girl that didn't come out of the woods sits down. And, this one girl keeps pressing on and looking for her friends, looking for her, boyfriend, whatnot. And all of a sudden she turns to say something. She couldn't have walked more than 100 feet. She said, I didn't walk more than 100 feet. But I turned to say something to my friend and she was gone. But it wasn't her that was gone. It was the area where she was just sitting was gone, because there was a large kind of boulder pile that she had been propped up on, sitting back on. And that wasn't there anymore. She's like, it was like the whole terrain had just changed on me. And I couldn't figure it out, I yelled for her name and I got no response. But I had only walked X amount of, feet. Turn around and she's gone. It makes no sense. I don't know what happened. So as they're getting the details from this young girl or young woman, they realize that this glowing kind of mist is now gone. It was like she had emerged from this kind of glowing mist. And,
as the night goes on, obviously all the guys are up now trying to figure out where she came from, trying to get the story of what happened. And they're kind of freaked out, like, this is, your friend was just here and now she's gone. We just saw you coming out of this green kind of mist, this glowing mist, which it wasn't a mist. It would be like, that's the way he described it. It was just this green glow all around in front of them. Your other friends are gone, and they're kind of freaked out, and they're deciding, all right, we have to bring her back to the headquarters area. We have to bring her to the hospital. We have to get her checked out. She might have hypothermia. She might have fallen. We don't know. She looks and appears to be like she had been in these woods for a week, not just a day. Like, she is filthy and just, look like she's been wrung through the ringer. They decide, all right, this is who's going to go back with her, and in daylight we're going to push on, but we need to figure out where these kids went. And before we bring her back, we're at least going to have to, have her show us in a day if any of this looks familiar to her, because they really don't know if they even went in this area. They're just going off of this trail that they had found, thinking that this is where these kids had gone up through. And they get her warm, they get her fed, they get some food in her, they get some coffee in her, so her core temperature is not as bad as it was. And she ends up kind of dozing off for a little bit. A few of the other troopers do. And sure as enough, daylight comes and the decision is made on who is going to accompany her back. And it's going to be 2 of the state troopers are going to go back, and they are going to, once they bring her back, they're going to get 2 more troopers with them and go up to where everyone else is. So now we're adding 2, and when we leave, these 2 are going to stay, and the next crew is going to come up and meet them, and so on and so forth. They get back to where she is, and that was his job. He didn't volunteer to go back. He wanted to kind of stay on this hike and look for these kids. But once again, he's not in charge of anything. So he has to bring the girl back, bring her to the hospital, make sure she's okay, this, and that. Which we're talking a couple of hours out of the day now. They come back. There's 4 now. And they get to the lake. And they get to the north side where camp was. They're on the radio. Hey, we're back where you guys were. But, as of right now, we got an hour's worth of light left. Maybe 2. How far are you? We're going to keep pushing on until we meet up with you. Or do you want to come back and meet up with us as we're walking towards you? So you start walking back, we'll start walking towards you, and we'll stop and meet where you're at. Okay, that's probably the best thing that we can do. But here's something. I don't think that girl even knew if they were in the right terrain. She said the next morning, that this is the right area where the other kids went missing. So they all end up meeting, and this is night 2. Camp is quickly set up. They start talking about the night prior to, and how freaky the forest was glowing this green color, and out of the blue she comes wandering out of the woods. But prior to that, we heard this loud help. And then she told us about, her friend being there. She turns around and her friend's not there. And it's not just her friend, but the whole terrain is different. And the two new state troopers that are there are kind of, what? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. So they hike a little more, and that's where they finally set up camp, not too far from where they had met, but they wanted to get a little bit more distance. And so when they had to turn around and go back, the other two could push on a little further. And now what may have to happen is the next group might have to be dropped in with helicopter to connect with the other troopers that are there now, the two. So they're just all discussing how freaking crazy and scary that night was. And all of a sudden, the forest turns that green color again. One of the guys had noticed it and said, "Holy shit, it's happening again. It's happening again." And they're looking and they're yelling, "Hey, are you out there? Are you out there? We're here. Alaskan State Troopers, Alaskan Park Rangers. We're here to help. We have your friend blank's name. She's at the hospital. She's safe. Come out if you can hear us. Walk towards our voice." But nothing. There's dead silence, an eerie dead silence. There is no wildlife. It almost sounds like whatever is happening, this Oz effect that it's called, is drowning out the sound of the creeks. These freshwater glacial creeks. Because there's pockets of water all throughout this area. Just everything ceased to make noise. And they hear the scariest sound. He said it was a sound that will stay with him forever. He said on top of the mist or light of that glow in the forest, that was terrifying. Hearing the girl scream and then watching her come out of that before we knew it was her, that was terrifying. He said, but this noise that came out of the woods, that erupted out of these woods, was just this loud kind of growl, but it didn't sound like a bear, a mountain lion, a wolf, any kind of known predator. It was too loud, too bassy. Kodiak bear decibels, polar bear decibels, just really but where they are, there is, slim chance of running into one of those two. At this point, troopers are now, they're now bundled up for the night in their night gear, but they all have their hands on their firearms because they don't know what this sound was. And what if something that's attached to that growl comes out of that green glowing forest right at us? It's already hard enough to see because it's almost like little waves of light. And that's why he compared it more or less to a fog as well, because it was very eerie and undescribable. The best would be, lights with kind of these waves in it. The lights stop. The Oz effect stops. You can hear the creek. You hear very limited wildlife, but what wildlife would be natural to that. And now they're talking, what the hell? Someone put some coffee on. We probably need more than 2 staying awake per every couple hours. Let's have 4, just in case. 1 to wake us up, and if it is a wild animal, 3 to lay rounds on that if it comes in, so it doesn't hurt anybody. They are just clueless about what's going on. That night, everyone's, after all the weirdness kind of stopped, the growl, the noise came back, everyone kind of makes the decision, all right, let's just figure out the best way. The state trooper who is in charge is now kind of, his nerves are, you can see that everybody's nerves are kind of like freaked out. These are grown men that have been trained for these conditions and this kind of mission that they're on. We got to figure out where these other kids are. Regardless of what these other instances are, we have to kind of ignore them, because 1, we're not here to pay attention to this shit. But 2, we got to find these kids. The glow might be, phosphorus or something, a natural, there's that when decomposition happens, there's a chemical reaction to where dead wood starts to glow. This very strange green color. Let's just ignore that and focus on the job, guys. We're grown men. Let's not get, overworked and overwhelmed by this bullshit. Everyone that is asleep, and the guys are awake. They wake their next group up, boop, boop. They get up in the morning, all right. They pack camp up. The guy in command says, all right, technically we can do another night up here. We've already gone this far. We've already seen what we've seen. We have enough food. Why don't we just radio in, let everyone know what is going on, see if we can, stay that extra night instead of the second night going back. And that way we can push further in while we're walking in. Let's see if another team of park rangers and state troopers can come in behind us and see if we missed anything. But also, it won't be too terribly hard for them guys to switch with us when we're on our way back out. That sounds great. Amazing. The commander gets the props for it, because it was actually something that wasn't in protocol and that, but it was a really good idea. And everyone agreed with him, that's a damn good idea. Now, on top of, us being up here, our 6 and 2, we've got another 6 and 2 coming back up or more. Maybe, just maybe, we all can, meet up and fan out as we're walking back down through and see, if we missed anything on that narrow distance that they were. Because they were only, as they were walking through the woods, there's person, 100 feet, person 100 feet, and they're walking up through. That's how they're looking for any kind of, signs of these kids. They start walking in. They start walking up further in. Mind you, they are not even close to, being anywhere deep into this mountain Denali. It is a treacherous terrain. They get to this location to where there's a glacial kind of spring, and they stop because one of the guys thinks or thought he had seen an article of clothing or, a boot or something. This gentleman didn't remember what it was. He wanted to say it was a boot, but it could have been an article of clothing. And it was something, he doesn't remember exactly what it was. This was 91. He's older now. And he just remembers that it was something, and they radioed to the base there and asked, one of the kids that was, down there, hey, was one of the guys wearing this brand of boot, this brand of hiking boot? And sure enough, it was one of the kids' boots. So now they're like, all right, we are on the right path. We've got one already back there. We've got a boot from one of the guys, and just maybe, something happened. And we can find him up a ways, but why would his boot be off? So they start walking, going toward where his boot would be. So instead of walking straight up this way now, they've started to angle it. And so they're, instead of going further north, they're going northeast, but more east than north. And they pass this little glacial spring. They keep walking, and they find kind of this, what looked to be a campsite. There's an old, campfire that's not going on, but it's not warm to the touch, but it's also not an old campfire. We're not talking, it is within the last day or two, just judging on the wood that was burnt, judging on all of everything else that is evident to them. So we're here, these kids can't be much further. They can't be much further. They stop. They radio back. We found this here. Here's our coordinates. This is where we found a boot. This is where we found the first girl. This is what happened here. Mark these coordinates off on a map so, we know where to go. Send the helicopter over and see, if they can see anything. And about an hour and a half, he said, that was from that camp spot. They're still walking in an northeastern straight line. They hear the helicopter going over. They can't see it because of the canopy of the pine and such, but they can hear it, and radio contact is made. It sounds like you're right above us, this and that. They said, we did see where the camp would have been because it was in a clearing just a little ways up from the spring there, where they found the boot. There's the pilot radios and says, hey, if you're going east, try to go back to going north, but at a slight kind of angle. Go northwest. There's a clearing up there, and it looks like something's there. We can't get much closer because of the canopy, but we can see a clearing, and it sure enough looks like there's a group of kids laying there. You know, it might be the kids just, you know, either alive or they perished, but it looks like there's something that way. All right, from where our location is, we are X amount from the fire pit that we'd spotted that you guys could see. How far? About a mile. About a mile in a northwestern direction. So start heading that way. So they're walking in this kind of northwestern fashion, heading toward where the helicopter told them to go. The helicopter says, you know, I'm going to go kind of over to this side area, and here I can't see, you know, distinctly what's there, but it does look like there is something or someone there. That's the best thing that we can say, you know. Biggest clue of, you know, whatnot. So go that way and, you know, radio to us what you find. We'll radio to you guys what you find. So they start walking and they get to somewhere about 3/4 of a mile in from where they just were. And they all really start to feel kind of off. Some of them, they stop for a minute because one of the guys is physically throws up. And, you know, he remembers this distinctly because this is where shit hit the fan for them. One of the guys physically throws up. A few of the guys are kind of nauseous, headaches, and whatnot. And there's also a kind of a feeling of dread, like a feeling of fear. And so they wait a minute or two, everyone to kind of get their composure together. And at this point, everyone's told to, you know, it's a weird feeling. Go with your gut. Everyone's equipped with a shotgun on top of their service weapon. A few of the guys had some Mossberg 500s, and the rest of them had Remington 870s. And so they're walking through, and they get to where they can see there's a clearing coming. And as they are walking in to this clearing, you've got about 50 feet of tree line in front of them. And they kind of announce to themselves, Alaskan State Troopers. They say a couple of the kids' names. Are you here? We're here to rescue you. You know, we've found your friend. You're okay. You know, we also found a shoe. Is someone missing a shoe? And as they're yelling this, they hear this kind of whoosh. This kind of just a whoosh noise. And right above their heads is like a basketball-sized rock flying from the clearing over their heads. And it hits, you know, a tree with a whack, a thud. And, you know, everyone's kind of looking like, what the fuck was that? They're racking their slides. You know, once again, Alaskan State Police, you know, stop throwing shit at us. We're here to help you. If it's this, and if it's not, you know, quit doing what you're doing because you will get shot. They walk in more into the clearing area. They can't see the clearing exactly what's in there. They can make out something's in there, but they can't make out what it is. There's another rock that gets thrown, and it hits another tree with a thud. About the same size, about the size of a basketball, you know. And a human being is not going to throw a rock the size of a basketball with that much force to where it sails through and then hits a tree with like just a thud, but it's not going down at an arc. It's staying up and whap, hitting the tree. One of the troopers has made his way into the clearing before all the rest, and you hear 2 shots. Boom, boom. He remembers the person in charge screaming, "Hold fire, hold fire." And they all start to run in. As they run in, they're looking at the trooper that had made his entrance into this clearing first, and he's got his shotgun at the ready pointing. And they kind of follow his barrel down through this clearing, and they see a large back. They see the back of something's legs, shoulders, running away from them. And, you know, he runs over and pushes the guy's gun down and says, "What the fuck are you doing? You know, is that one of the kids?" And because right now it's all excitement. They couldn't make out that it wasn't one of the kids. They couldn't make out how large this figure was. And he said, "That was definitely not one of the kids, sir. You know, I walked in and that thing had another rock and it was going to throw it at us or at me." He goes, "So I did what I was trained to do. You know, I'm in danger. I'm going to take my shot." And he said, "Well, what was it? What was it?" And he said, "What I saw was this man, this large man that was, 13, 14 feet in height. It was at least double my height and maybe a little more, with a rock the size of a basketball. But he was palming it like it was no problem to palm. It'd be like us palming a softball. And he was just going to lob it at me. I had no choice." And he's like, "Wait, 13, 14 feet in height. What are you talking about?" And they're like, "All right." And they kind of look where it went. And a few of the guys start walking into the clearing more and going toward the woods where this thing ran. The state trooper in charge of everything is questioning him. He doesn't acknowledge or he doesn't see that these guys have started walking. And the guy that I talked to last night was one of them. He said when they got to the middle of this clearing, they look in this area where this thing that they saw briefly went into the woods. They believe they saw its head kind of peek out behind a tree, and it was holding like the tree looking at us. And it had like this large head and a beard. It had a beard that was dark in color, and its eyes were this like glowing kind of reddish orange staring at us. And it's in the woods a little bit. It's not in the clearing, and it's a overcast day, but they could see that these eyes were sort of glowing. And they make out what appears to be, kind of like almost like it's wearing a fur on its body, like it's wearing clothes. It appears to be wearing shorts that were made out of some sort of fur or animal hide, and what appeared to be a shirt, and it's, staring at us. And as one of the guys makes a step towards it, and he racks his slide and pulls up on it, and he's going to shoot it, it makes that growl that they heard 2 nights ago. The second night of that green kind of mist color. And they all stop, and they're like, they kind of look at each other, and the state trooper in charge yells up to the guys, "What the fuck was that?" Because you could just hear it through this clearing. It was just this loud kind of reverberating growl, but it wasn't like that of a wolf or a bear. It was just like kind of a noise, almost like it was clearing its throat, but that's not what it was doing. And as it did that, it kind of stepped forward, but it's still in the tree line, and it steps forward all away from the tree. And the one guy who had been standing with everyone, in the clearing, he's standing right next to the gentleman that I spoke to, takes a shot right after it made that growling noise. And you could hear the slug hit. Like it sounded like it hit something solid. Thump. And this loud kind of howl in pain, this just scream. And he said, I followed the slug as best as I could. Obviously, I couldn't see, but when I heard it and I looked, he goes, I could see that it hit it in its shoulder area. And he said, I saw blood spray. He said, but it barely moved. It barely took a shot in its shoulder. It just stood there. And, it let out that howl like it did hurt. And it turned around and just started sprinting away from us again. So the helicopter guys are up, and, they're saying, hey, have you guys, discharged your firearms? We can hear noise. We can hear, what sounds like shots coming off. Is that you guys? Are you guys okay? Do we need to kind of go over to where you guys are right now? We are looking at another clearing. We don't see anything in this clearing, but it's worth a check. And state trooper in charge says, I don't know what we just saw or what one of the guys just shot at, but whatever it was, it's huge. And the helicopter pilot kind of laughs. What are you guys playing with Bigfoot down there? Da 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 da. And he said, no, this was something that was not, whatever. He said, go over this clearing and see how far, it is to the next clearing, or if there's, some sort of cave that you can see and something. Just go. And a couple minutes, they hear the helicopter go over them, and they see it. They can briefly see from the clearing it going in the way where this creature just ran. And they're hearing it go, and all of a sudden the helicopter pilot goes, what the fuck is that? And you hear him start kind of screaming like, we're taking fire. Something just hit the bottom of the copter. We got to get out of here. And it goes over them a couple minutes later, and the state trooper in charge says, where's that clearing? We got it. Let's meet up. Can you land the helicopter in that clearing? Is it large enough to land? And we got to figure out what's going on. found a boot, but we also just saw what you saw. And they get to the clearing, the helicopter lands, they're talking. They're told now to get back. They are by, the one state trooper that's in charge of everybody up here is not who's in charge of the whole process and the whole search and rescue. But the copter pilot and his one guy and the troopers that are up there with the 2 park rangers are told, hey, come back, get back to freaking base. We're radioing the team that's just behind you to go back. And, we've got to figure out what's going on. If the helicopter's damaged, does that mean someone's up there shooting at us? And the pilot said, listen, that's not what, something just hit me. And I'm assuming, it was a rock or something, because, there's a dent in the bottom of this helicopter that is a decent size. It's fairly decent size, maybe a little bigger than a basketball. But, there's something out there. And they all say, all right, how many guys can you fit on the helicopter safely? And we'll have the other team that's behind you guys, a day and a half behind you guys, start heading back. We got to figure out what's going on. So 4 of the state troopers end up waiting in this clearing. The helicopter flies back to base, drops off the other state troopers. So the 4 state troopers that left behind, it's getting dark. It's the other helicopter had been gone for about an hour. And it's about 45 minutes to an hour, closer to an hour, to get out where they were. That's how rugged this terrain is, And they hear the copter coming, and there's been no noise, no any kind of danger or whatnot. Everyone's getting chilly because it's getting dark. They got their warm clothes on. They get into the helicopter and they start flying away. And one of the state troopers that he ended up working with for another 3 or 4 years spots something in the woods, and he yells to the pilot, hey, do you see what's over there? What the hell is that over there? It looks like something's moving over there. Can we go back? Can you fly back? And just take a flyover really quick, just fly over this area. And the helicopter goes over this area, and what they see is this green glow on the ground, but it's not large. It's fairly large, but it's not enormous like the mist was those 2 days. But once again, it's not a mist. It's this, how he described the light, this vibrating kind of light. But they see this, what looks like this kind of glowing hole. And it's the same color green that they had seen those 2 times. And they see what appears like this black object coming out of this hole. And the pilot said, holy shit, is that a fucking UFO? What the hell is that, guys? And he said, I'm out of here. And they start to fly back, and everyone, of course, except the pilot, who can't see because he's flying straight ahead, he's going back the other way. So everyone's trying to look and see what they can see, which isn't a lot, because now the helicopter's in the other way. But they see this kind of glow and this black coming out of this glow. And it was like a triangular shape, and the helicopter just heads back. They end up getting back to base. Everyone is taken to a location where they are debriefed and start discussing what was seen, what had happened. The girl who was at the hospital had said that she's now, or was at that point, they had warmed her up. She was dehydrated, just really, really bad off. And so she had gotten better. But she's in a 72-hour psych hold because she keeps saying some weird shit like that doesn't make sense to the hospital. Like one of the troopers that had questioned her at the hospital, she had stated that what happened was they were hiking and the woods turned green as they were walking into it, and everybody seemed to vanish except her and her friend. And then her and her friend started looking. Night came. They huddled up. They couldn't figure out which way was which. So, they stayed as close together as possible. She was asked about the fire, about the boot. And she's like, I have no idea. We didn't start a fire. We were freezing that night, the night before you found us, or found me. The next day, we get up and we start walking more. And my friend sits because she's exhausted. We're both exhausted. And she just disappears. And I have no idea what happened. It's just this green light. And all my friends disappeared. And of course, people of logic hear that and they're, labeling her as crazy, or, maybe she had hit her head, whatever. Everyone is then, the troopers are all, well, we're not going back up there. We're not. After everything that everybody has seen, we're done. We're going to, this was 3.5 days looking. We're going to say that we kept looking for, 4 more days, but we aren't up there. If they come out of the woods, they come out of the woods. If they don't, we don't know. But, as far as the media and family members know, we're, up there until X amount of days. And then if we can't find them, we have to just call off the search. So, but we're calling it off now. We're calling it off early because whatever you guys shot at and whatever was in those woods, and, multiple state troopers, multiple park rangers are claiming to see this green light. You guys saw a green light, a circular green hole in the ground with something coming out of it. One of you guys shot a 13 to 14 foot tall human that ran away. And, we're not going back. We're not jeopardizing any of our troopers' lives, but, plus there's 2,000 people that go missing every year in this area. So we're going to chalk these guys up to, these 6 missing hikers, because one came out. There were 7. One came out. Those 6 are either dead or, missing, permanently missing. And we'll add that to the number of missing people that year of 91. And they played the media, and once a week went by, the state troopers and park rangers made the announcement that, we have to call off the search due to extensive and severe terrain. One, we don't have the capability and accessibility of getting up into that area. As far as we went, we've gone as far as we can go, and no one has spotted anything. There are some crevices and stuff that maybe they fell into, but to save on safety, we can't, send our troopers in there to do that, or anyone else for that matter. It's a write-off. And that really bothered him. Since 1991. From that point on, he moved to the second largest city in Alaska and stayed in a cruiser for the rest of his career as a state trooper. But he to this day feels like they did the family a disservice. He has a notebook where he had written these families' names down, the kids' names down, and he, once a year, the day they ended the search and rescue, will go to his local church and light 6 candles and mentally beat himself up still to this day because of it. Because it's just, he feels like he took an oath but violated his oath because that's what he was told to do. And he really believes wholeheartedly that what is going on in this Alaskan triangle is some sort of alien or demonic facility. What else? What they saw that opening coming, and this thing coming out of the ground. So that could have been an opening to some sort of base, a deep underground base, or it could have been a portal. He thinks that it was some sort of base. After all of that had happened, he started to read up and get into the literature where Bill Cooper wrote Behold the Pale Horse. Phil Schneider was doing speeches and kind of addressing the audience and such. And he started to look into Dulce and read about Dulce and whatever information he could find at that time, because it was before internet. But he really thinks that it was either some sort of deep underground base run by reptilians or alien-like creatures or demons, and whatever that was that the guy shot at and he witnessed firsthand could have been some sort of Nephilim or a demon, because he said that growl that he heard that night, 2 nights prior, and that same day that they saw its face, that it did not have human teeth. It did not have flat teeth for grinding. It had fangs. It had, sharp teeth. And he really thinks that it was either a giant or a demon. So, and he thinks wholeheartedly that after looking at Dulce, that those 20,000 people that have gone missing in that region over the years, and the 2,200 people that go missing yearly are used for genetic experiments by these reptilians, by these greys, or demons, whatever he wants to call them. He calls them a mixture of both. He doesn't know. He's like, I think they are demons. I think they're aliens some days. He goes, I don't know. He goes, I really don't know. And he said that one day when I was talking about how, I made the statement, this isn't going to get looked upon too well, guys, but what if, these greys, these reptilians, are really demons, and they're not coming from outer space, but they're coming from a dimension. He said that when he heard me say that, that was the day that he knew he wanted to talk to me. He had reached out to one other channel prior to mine about 1.5 years ago. And the reason why his wife kind of talked to me and gave me the, whatever, was because of how this guy treated him, and really treated him like shit.
And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed today's second bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.